directing our lives to help us survive, so we spend our time to the fullest we can. We're seeing our lives have purpose, engaging our days to find better ways and build this life to the fullest we can.
Hello, welcome to This Dementia Life, created by Dementia Action Alliance. My name is Monica Downer, and I'm proud to be your host today. During our This Dementia Life podcast, we have conversations with inspiring people living with dementia and amazing people that care about us. My guest today is Chantal Patenaude. Chantal Patenaude is a Montreal-based writer and linguist whose essays have appeared in Helping and Bright Flash Literary Review. After decades of working in education abroad, she returned to Canada and cared for her mother through dementia. It is what it is. It's her debut memoir about her journey. It is what it is. Walking Beside My Mother Through Dementia is a memoir accompanying a parent through frontotemporal dementia and the transformation of the relationship between mother and daughter. In this case, language changed first, shaping an experience that differed from what most expect of dementia. This is not a how-to book, but a lived account of learning to meet her mother where she was and of finding moments of connection and joy along the way. Chantal, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the invitation.
You're more than welcome. Can you tell us about your book and what message do you most want readers to take away from it?
Sure. Well, I didn't set out to write a book while I was caring for my mother. Had I known, I would have kept a journal, a detailed one. But I didn't. I was just living it day by day. About after 6 months after my mother passed, I felt the urge to start writing again. But I quickly realized that I wasn't ready to go back there. And it took some time before I could begin again. I took a writing workshop. I started gathering notes, and slowly that turned into a first draft, and then many, many more. And the book came together over 3.5, almost 4 years. I think that writing it became part of how I processed the experience. It was part of my grieving, but mostly it's a tribute to my mother, to who she was and how she went through it. It's not, as you mentioned, it's not a how-to book. It's a lived experience. It's an experience from the inside, something that can accompany other caregivers rather than guide them. I do share some lessons learned, but not as advice, because everybody's situation is so different. The other thing with my book, I also wanted to bring some awareness to a form of dementia that people don't always expect. Like my mother had frontotemporal dementia, FTD, as we know it. And in her case, it was language that was affected first, not behavior. And it's not what most people expect when they hear the word dementia. So I guess I'm also sharing a perspective that's a bit atypical, because my mother gradually lost her words. And for quite some time, her only words were yes and no. But through it all, what remained was her essence. She did have moments of confusion and delusion, hallucinations, of course, but through it all, she remained her kind, gentle, and grateful self. So I think my book, it really came from all of that, the love, grief, trying to make sense of it all, and to share some of that experience, which in my case was as rewarding as it was devastating. And if it resonates with someone who's going through something similar or helps them feel a bit less alone in it, well, then that's really it.
Okay. You mentioned that you discovered unexpected moments of tenderness and joy. Could you share a few of those moments with us and what helped you recognize them in the middle of everything you were going through?
Oh. there was so much unknown, and so much I couldn't control.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a decision early on that every time I was with my mother, I would try to make her smile. And
Oh.
some days it worked, some days I
Mm-hmm.
had to work for it, and some days
Mm-hmm.
I failed. But I did learn to meet her where she was and to pay attention to the moments that were still there. So I chose to focus on what she could still do and not
Mm-hmm.
on what she could no longer do. And that made a big difference. Like in the earlier stages, that looked like, continuing to do things together, going
Mm-hmm.
for a coffee or visiting art galleries, walking through the
Oh,
Tulip
nice.
Festival, going for a pedicure, even just shopping.
Mm-hmm.
And then as things changed and her symptoms progressed, those moments changed too. They happened, but they were a little bit different. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, at first we could still paint with acrylics, and later it became water painting books. Or we no longer traveled, but we would go through her travel photo albums, and it was almost like we were revisiting all those places together.
Oh,
We had
nice.
Yes, it was lovely. We had ice cream at home instead of the ice cream parlor. We listened to music,
Mm-hmm.
sat outside, listened to the birds. I
Mm-hmm.
I tried to bring the outside world to her in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother loved art, so through art books and exhibition catalogs, I even brought a bit of the spa to her, which she really enjoyed. But
Really?
it's those simple moments that really mattered. She was
Mm-hmm.
happy, so it brought me joy. Um, I Speaking of joy, I through my journey, I think my definition of joy really expanded or broadened. And I'll just read a little passage from my book that illustrates this. Um, I was hopeful for a good day when I visited her the day before Valentine's Day. My definition of a good day had changed. It wasn't about her staying awake the entire time, eating a full meal, eating a full meal, or being in a good mood from start to finish. A good day might mean she gave me a full smile, responded to my voice, ate a few bites, or rested peacefully after a gentle hand massage. Just as her days were unpredictable, so too were the ways I measured joy. I came to understand that even difficult days could hold moments of happiness, and that joy didn't need to be obvious to be real.
Oh, beautiful.
Thank you.
What was the most challenging part of writing It Is What It Is, both emotionally and creatively?
The book. Um, Emotionally, I would say the most challenging part was going back into it. I remember
Mm,
clearly the first time I tried to sit down and map out my ideas to write the book, I had a full panic attack. I
oh,
wasn't
my.
ready. And even when I did start writing, there were days I had to step away because some scenes were harder to return to than others. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, it brought up a lot of emotion. Um, I was a caregiver for my mother for many years. And after she passed, I was still very much in that space.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, It was hard, but I'm very happy I did it. Yes. As far as the creativity part, that's another story. It was a long process.
Mhm.
First, I making sense of my notes and my memories and turning that into a first draft, followed by many, many revisions, and then editing and more editing. The writing process is a very long one, but over
Mhm.
time, with lots of work and support from my editor, it came together. So my mother, she had favorite sayings, and two of them were, when we start something, we finish it. And
Mhm.
when we do something, we do it well. So she really instilled that in me. And with
I
my
like
book,
that.
yeah, I think I honored that with my book.
Little moment in your journey that shifted your perspective on dementia care.
From the moment of the diagnosis, knowing that it's a progressive disease and that there was no cure, I anticipated a roller coaster ride. But
Mhm.
I must say, nothing prepares you for what it feels like to watch it unfold and to live through it. I had no experience in caregiving like so
Mhm.
many other family caregivers, and I
Right.
made mistakes along the way. I,
Mhm.
I, I was learning as I went. I did my best. I showed up, but it was,
Mhm.
yeah, I think there was a slight shift when I came to that moment where I realized that I had to meet her where she was. And from that point on, it became more about um, adjusting to her reality and living
Mhm.
in the now. It was no longer about correcting or reminding
Right.
or trying to fill the gaps. It was more about how I showed up, my tone, my pace,
Mhm.
the way I approached her. And I think that changed the experience.
I bet because they really respond to those things, your tone, and yeah, they pick up
Yeah.
on it. And mhm.
And there, yes.
This is our final question for care partners or family members who might be walking a similar path right now. What encouragement or practical advice would you have for them?
Well, I would hesitate to give advice because every situation is so different.
Mm-hmm.
But I can say that what made a big difference for me was not doing it alone. I was the primary caregiver, and it took a big part of my life. But having
Mm-hmm.
some form of support around my mother and around myself really helped. Um, we all know like dementia is progressive and it affects the person living with it, of course, but it also increases the level of care needed over time. And at first, caregiving was something I did, but then it became a big part of who I was. So
Mm-hmm.
I was um, I was fortunate to have my siblings, companions for my mother, access to a dementia coach, healthcare professionals, and so on. And having that support made it possible to stay present without
Mm-hmm.
everything else falling apart, without crashing, because that is a
Mm-hmm.
huge reality for caregivers. I mean,
Yes.
even with the support team, I have to admit that I was still often overwhelmed because
Mm-hmm.
also life doesn't stop because a loved one has dementia.
Mm-mm.
We have our
No,
families, our
it
work,
doesn't.
our responsibility. And being
Mm-hmm.
a dementia caregiver, it's a lot. It's hard. It's
Mm-hmm.
excruciating to see your parent or your loved one slowly disappear and be so
Mm-hmm.
powerless. But I having that team really, really helped me. Um, if you don't mind, I'd like to just bring up something that I'm thinking of now. It's the I'd like to bring up self care. The concept sounds so simple, but for caregivers, it's not always obvious or even possible. And I know there were many instances for me where I couldn't make space for myself. And although I frequently heard, or I was told, take care of yourself, take time for yourself. And it's true. And it's absolutely necessary. And I believe it. But sometimes for a caregiver, it's easier said than done. But
Yeah.
having said that, I would just like to share that when I did take time for myself, it made a difference. And it didn't have to be anything big. Sometimes it was just sitting, taking a few deep breaths, stepping outside, calling a friend, reading a chapter or a page in a book, watching a TV show. Those moments are important, even if they're small, but it's important to take care of ourselves. And lastly, I think I would like to say that there is a community of people who really understand what it's like to be a dementia caregiver. Personally, I found most of it after the fact while I was writing and researching my book. And I wish I had known about it earlier, because there are lots of good resources out there. And I hope that my book can walk alongside others navigating something similar.
Do you list any of those resources in your book?
Pardon me?
I'm just curious, do you list any of those resources in your book?
No.
Okay.
No, I only listed a few where if they happen to be in the story I was telling. But no, I don't know. It's not a guidebook, but just by researching, there are so many
Yeah,
resources.
there are.
I think it's really a good idea to join such a community, and then to be able to share and to realize that, yes, this saying, we're not alone. We feel alone, but we're not alone in this.
That's right. Well, Chantal, thank you for joining us today to share information about your debut memoir, It Is What It Is, and for sharing your journey. Dementia Action Alliance is committed to enhancing lives, connecting people, and increasing understanding. I'd like to thank you for joining DAA for our This Dementia Life podcast. More podcasts and valuable resources are available at daanow.org. You can help continue these podcasts and other programs that enhance the lives of the dementia community with a donation at daanow.org/donate.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure being here. Thank you.
You are more than welcome. Thank you.
We can, so we